Hello and welcome to this episode of Mysteries with a History. Today we're covering a very famous case in England and one that I thought to myself, how come I didn't hear about this until very recently? Let me bring in my co-host, Jimmy Church of Fada Black Radio.
Man, we're going
Jimmy,
straight to it. Just
straight to
jumping
it.
straight, running straight into the ocean. Just
And
reckless
why not?
abandon. Reckless abandon. Christina, how are you? How you doing?
I'm doing so good. How are you, Jimmy?
Just another beautiful day. Starting to cool down outside a little bit. You know, I live in the Mojave Desert and it's taken the turn from 110 degrees every day to chilling out to 90, and you can feel the crispness of the
At 90
October
degrees?
air.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Life is good around here, but Christina, this is a huge case. I have researched this case so much over the years. There's so much out there with this case to go and check out. It's really, really cool. But man, this came out of nowhere. And you just said, how did I not know about this case? So what happened? How did you bump into this?
As you know, I cover UFO news every single day, and I came across a video of Michael Schellenberger, the journalist who was at the congressional hearing last year, barely touch on this case. Didn't even name the case. I had to do extra research to see what he was referring to, and I thought, Jessie Roestenberg, why have I not heard of this case? And I'll be the first to admit that I do not know everything. So I was doing a little more digging, and I thought, oh my gosh, Jimmy and I need to cover this for Thursday.
It's a good one, man. It's a good one. And okay, just for everybody, I'm going to hand this back to Christina, but Jessie Roestenberg, this happened October 21st, 1954 at about 4:45 in the afternoon. At the time, she was 29 years old. She's got 3 kids, 2 sons and a daughter. Her daughter's 2 years old, in the house with her when the encounter happened, but it initially happened with her 2 sons that were outside. Vicarage Farm is the little town where this happened in Ranton, near Staffordshire in the United Kingdom. Now, this is, for me, one of the coolest parts about this case is she did a lot of interviews. This was a big case. There was a lot of video out there, and you get to hear her speak. And you get a real genuine feeling from her. The way that she talks about it, and it's her English accent too, has a lot to do with it, right? But she just speaks so matter-of-factly, and it is amazing to jump into this case instead of reading about it and looking at pictures, which we have in images, and that's up on the screen right now. And I'll hand this over to Christina. But we don't really normally have an interview, or in this case, plural interviews, that are vintage like this. So I encourage everybody, go and check out her interviews. They're out there, and they are absolutely fascinating. So, Christina, what happened on October 21st, 1954?
And I will place those interview links in the description box below for you, for those that want to catch it. But this one, really, Jimmy just gave us the rundown. There's so much more to it. But as he had stated, that her 2 kids saw something very strange. She walks outside. In the interview, she says, obviously, I called my children stupid. Like, aliens? No, that's not a thing. And then she sees the craft for herself. She classified it as some Mexican hat, a sombrero, right? And there was
without the baubles. she was very clear about that, in all of the interviews, right? It's like a Mexican without the go back to the previous images of the house and then continue.
Yeah, so there is the image of the house, and she looks up and she sees a glass dome and 2 beings that she called beautiful people. They were blonde, they were tall, they had bigger foreheads than your average human does, and they just caught her attention. She also mentioned in the interview that she will never forget how they look like for the rest of her life. And this description, people have connected to the Nordics. And we're going to go into more detail a little bit later of how not only was she slightly influenced by George Adamsky's book, but also the beings looked very similar from his sightings in the very early 1950s to her sighting in October of 1954. And it being October and the October season, it's also only appropriate to cover this case. So, Jimmy, after she sees these beings, what happens next?
Well, okay, so she goes outside, just to set this up a little bit more. She said that she heard, this is her description in the interviews, which is very interesting. She said she heard what sounded like water being thrown on a fire, right? A whoosh sound. So she hears that. She hears her boys screaming, and the two sons were ages 6 and 8. She goes outside, and they're lying on their backs in the grass. And she described them as being in a state of shock. And they were screaming that there was a flying saucer above them. Now, she's looking at her sons, right? She doesn't understand what they are talking about. She says she turns around, and above the house, now the image on the right, see the roof? She said that the flying saucer was so low from her angle, she couldn't see the two chimneys. Right? So you see the chimneys there. That's how low this craft was. And she said it was engulfing the roof line of the house. So the flying saucer is larger than the house, but low, so low from her angle, she couldn't see the house's chimneys, which is very interesting because you can see the size of the chimneys, right? They dominate the roof line. And she's looking at her house and she doesn't see the chimneys blocked out by the craft. Now, she describes a couple of things. She said Mexican hat, but that the front part of either the craft or the dome. Now, she's given 2 different, 3 different, 4 different statements over the years. And the way that she describes it, the way that the journalists interpreted what she was saying, it has been viewed a little bit differently. But whatever the case may be, she said that the front part of the object was transparent. Was that a glass dome with a window on the front? Was the front part of the craft, the saucer disc shaped part, was that what was clear and transparent? Not really sure. But she said through that, she could see these 2 blonde humanoid figures staring at her and staring at her sons from the craft. Right. Now, she said they had pale blue, skin tight suits on that looked almost like ski suits, and that they had full glass helmets, not helmets with the glass, but no, a full glass dome. And the other description that she gives, I'm going to get to the face in a second. She said they were unsmiling. Yeah, I found that very interesting. They didn't look happy. They were unsmiling. She said that the dome part of the top of the helmets may have actually distorted what she was seeing with their faces. That the large forehead, and she says this over and over again, the face was down on the lower part, and they had this, but it may have been the glass helmet stretching out the forehead and making the face look smaller. She wasn't clear. She's all on exactly what she was saying. She's only describing how they appeared to her. Now, she also said, she over and over again, beautiful, beautiful. That was her description. And they both had long hair. All right. So now this is 1954. She then said that, again, this also changed over the years, Christina. It was very interesting, a little bit. I have to go with her memory and describing this, that week, and then a month later, and then years later, and then all the way into, and you can see her here in this picture, all the way into the 1970s. But she said that it circled the house 2 times before flying away at high speeds. In other interviews, she said 3 times. In another interview, she said 1.5 times. I don't think that really matters much. What's the difference between 2 and 3 times swirling above the house? That's just her memory. I get that, right? But that's how it ended. And she said it disappeared at high speed. What do you make of the slight inconsistencies over the years with what was described? And do you attribute that to the journalist and how they turn around and write up the article? Or is there something to be concerned about?
Naturally, we are not skilled storytellers. It's nothing that's taught in school. If we look at the Native American traditions, in order to be a shaman, you have to learn how to verbatim share a story. And they go through rigorous training to where they can tell the same story for years and not a sentence changes.
Right.
On average, everyone else, it's going to alter from time to time. But skeptics, sometimes those that just don't want to add any positivity to these types of cases, will find anything and then string it out and say, oh, she's lying because she made this little error. It's disappointing. That's just how the human mind is. But our memory is naturally faulty. That's why it's so important when someone tells a story or a case to hear it fresh. Have it just happened maybe a few days ago, but when years pass, it's only a matter of time for details to kind of get a little wonky, but at least you get the gist of the story. That's why people no longer believe folklore like they used to. They always say there's a little bit of truth behind it, but it's been embellished over the years. And the same thing can be applied to when anyone tells you a gossip or a rumor of some kind. It's going to slightly change. So it's disappointing to hear that she wasn't consistent, but she's human from what I
She was
know. So I think it's
mostly
fine.
consistent. Yeah, it's not like there she was caught in a lie.
Right.
That's not the case here. In the interviews, which are so compelling, they're such a joy to watch. She says a couple of things that really caught my attention. She says when her husband came home from work, he found the family underneath the kitchen table. Right?
It's a cozy
She
place, I
said,
guess.
yeah. She said that thing sped away. She was terrified. She's got her daughter who's 2 years old. She grabs her sons. They're freaking out. They run in the house. They lock the door and hid underneath the kitchen table until dad came home. There's something about that statement and how she makes it that I think that's exactly what happened. She saw the craft, grabbed her kids, ran in the house, locked the door, did the only thing that she could do, the safest spot in the house, right? Underneath the kitchen table, build a fort. Yeah, absolutely. I'm so with her on that. And then she also said that she goes, look, it happened. It's true. That we have been ridiculed, we have been teased, we have been called nutters, right? These are her words, right? But it just doesn't matter to me. The incident happened just the way that I have told you. I have nothing else to add. There's nothing else to it. Didn't make any contact. We didn't communicate. We saw the sighting. We saw the craft. It was above the house. It flew away. I grabbed my kids, ran in the house, locked the door, hid underneath the kitchen table until dad came home. And that's the case. Now there were other witnesses too, as well, Christina, and they had 6 or 7 sightings as a family, but with all of the other sightings, multiple witnesses with each case. Very interesting, and it makes you wonder what's going on in the country out there in the United Kingdom.
It does. And keep in mind that in the fall of 1954, there were actually a lot of UFO sightings taking place in Europe. So this one just added really to the statistic, but we got some really incredible details. We got some nice articles. We got a lot of books written about her, like very specific chapters that covered her case. We got a handful of different interviews that we don't get too often in 1954. So we got a lot of information. And I'm going to share a little bit of that in just a moment. But before then, Bob, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for that super chat as well. Hopefully you get better. Drink some nice chicken soup. Moon at Noon, thank you as well. DL, it's good to see you. I feel like it's been a while, so I appreciate that. And Scott, thank you as well. You guys are awesome. And another great way to support this channel is to hit that like button right down below, subscribe, and share this type of content if you enjoy what you're looking at. Something else worth mentioning, Jimmy, is that during this time frame, 1954, it was, some might say, it was a UFO flap. So not only was it taking place in Europe, but there were also a handful of pretty famous cases happening in the US throughout the 1950s into the 1960s. It was a really hot time period for UFO sightings. And if we look at some similar ones, one of them took place in France, one that we've actually covered, excuse me. And there were a few in England, there were a few in Italy. So when we're looking at Europe, when we're looking at the UK, I think it's very interesting that people were seeing so many strange things during that same time frame. But if I move forward, there were a handful of different investigations done on this case. One of the first people to really get knees deep into the investigation was Gavin Gibbons. And he was a British linguist, but he originally spoke Dutch, which Jessie's husband also spoke Dutch. So there was this immediate connection between the two to
And
where
he was not a journalist.
that's
You
right.
know, that's the interesting part about this. He was an intellectual that was just following the facts.
Yes. That which I think it would make me question, why would he want to get involved in this case if he didn't really have a background in that? Probably because he had an immense interest in the topic. So he ended up writing a book right after he was doing his investigations. He mentioned that he actually became friends with the family. He would visit there often, so he got a little bit more information from them than maybe a few other journalists during that same time frame. But he wrote his book called The Coming of the Spaceships in 1956, so a little under 2 years after the case happened. And there was a lot that was mentioned. So obviously the physical UFO sighting, but some things were omitted, which we'll get into. And then there were some medical issues that she went through that we don't hear often. People touch on it with UFO sightings or UFO abductions. In this case, she wasn't abducted that we know of, but she had to go to the hospital several different times for different reasons. She lost a lot of weight. Her skin was not a healthy color. She had a very low hemoglobin blood count, which we've heard a few times, enough to where we're able to create a pattern. And doctors, especially her main doctor, said, "Oh, I know about your UFO sighting. What you're encountering is completely a mental phenomena. Like you are making this up and then your body's agreeing with you on your imagination." But there was physical evidence that it almost looked like radiation poisoning.
Yeah, well, they had multiple sightings too as well. It just wasn't this sighting in October of 1954. And the second sighting, this is what's crazy. Her husband Tony felt that well, he stated later, I should say, that he always had an intuition about something about to happen. He didn't want to necessarily classify it as psychic. And then later he started to say, man, I think I started to get psychic abilities with this stuff. And now Tony and a friend, and then another friend, um, were involved in the second sighting that happened at 2:30 in the afternoon on the next Sunday, Christina, which was October 24th, 1954. And they described this. Now, this was multiple witnesses, an enormous cylindrical sausage shaped, their words, not mine, sausage shaped object that was moving around their property on a large elliptical curved trajectory around the property, and they sat and watched it. It was huge, and they said that it eventually disappeared into a cloud bank to the north and was gone. Now that was a week later. Fascinating. And then they had a third sighting. This involved her. She was, by the way, let me back up. Out of the 7 sightings that happened over the next couple of years, Jessie was involved with all of them except for one. So could this have something to do with the medical part of this and stuff? And now the third sighting, which was on December 15th, 1954, so 2 months later, a ball of fire is how this was described. And Tony, again, with multiple friends and Jessie, that the ball of fire was silently moving at an angle of about 45 degrees from the horizon. They described it as if you put your arm out, it was about 3 inches. Okay. If you put your arm out, that's how much of the sky, but it moved towards them and got larger. Eventually, again, at arm's length, 18 inches in front of them, about a mile away. They described it. 45 degrees coming towards them. Then, as it got close to them, an airplane came out from the east. And when that happened, the fireball suddenly moved. The fireball was stationary in the sky. Remember, 3 inches in diameter, about a mile away, eventually got closer to them to 18 inches. So it's huge. It's right in front of them, but it's not really moving. Airplane comes in and from the east, and then the fireball suddenly moved, shooting northward. The plane is coming in from the east. The fireball shoots north at incredible speed and disappearing from sight within just a few seconds. Now, could this, and I was looking at the chat, everybody's bringing up radiation. The kids were playing in the front yard. This craft was above the house. It's right above her and right in front of her. And the same thing with the second sighting, with the cylindrical craft circling around their house. And then the third sighting is a giant fireball that approaches them and grows above them. Could it be something like that? I don't know, but she did have a lot of issues that she had to deal with from these sightings and moving forward throughout her life.
And when I mentioned that her blood count was low, it turns out that she had to go through treatment that required iron injections twice a week to restore the blood count, though established correct dosage proved difficult and it caused all sorts of problems. So I'm not really sure how the brain can say, all right, no, you're done. We don't have to do this anymore. We're gonna fall into your imagination. There was actual medical evidence following her UFO sighting that she had to go through very specific treatments to adjust the new things that were happening in her body. And this during this treatment, this medical pattern that she was going through, it caused depression in her. It caused skin manifestations like rashes, weight loss, and even bone marrow, like affecting bone marrow function as well. All these things were related to radiation, but at that time they were just kind of hinted at, like maybe, but the mentality of the doctors was it's impossible for you to have radiation poisoning. There is no way, you weren't close to anything. There was no reason for it. So they brushed it off. As the years progressed and her story became more famous, people started making the connection that, okay, no, these are all symptoms of radiation poisoning of some kind. But she also mentioned that right when the encounter took place, that she felt these this tingling feeling in her body throughout the day right after the encounter. And then she felt a little revitalized afterward. Though those were her words, revitalized. And then it went downhill from there. There was nothing really positive coming for her health after that. But simultaneously, she mentioned to Gibson that for the following 4 years, she felt like she had a higher level of psychic ability.
Hmm.
That she just seemed more psychic compared to previously. And there have been a lot of reported cases of people, mainly more alien abduction type, but in this case, it's for her just a sighting, that they feel more connected with their consciousness. They feel more psychic. And in some cases, she stated that from the corner of her eye, she could see beings, which some
Yeah,
of
yeah.
us,
Wasn't that interesting?
a
Yeah,
little freaky. When I,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it happens to all of us from time to time. We
Sure.
just a little shadow on the side of our eye, and then we look and there's nothing there. But for her, it was a bit more frequent. It's definitely unnerving if you don't know or if you're not used to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. There's something over here right now next to me, but I'm not going to look. And her, yeah, I know, right? Is this both her and her husband Tony had stated, I got a strange feeling. There's something going on, and they would go outside and there would be something in the sky. I find today I've had that same experience, and when you're out with, I think that there is a conscious connection. There is something going on. I don't know. Now, I'm going to speculate here, but let's just say ET is like sending out a group text, right? To everybody. Some of us can pick up on the signal, some of us can't or ignore it. And that's what I feel, like this universal phone call and, over an area. Well, they would pick up on these feelings and then go outside and see something like that cylindrical object. Uh, Tony got a feeling about that. The fireball, they both got the feeling about that and would go out and then observe it. Well, today, how many not only journalists and the media, but experiencers talk about this conscious connection? Well, they were talking about this 60 years ago, Christina. It's just absolutely amazing. How many times do we have to hear this over and over again? I was with Ross Coulthart and listening to him speak, and just recently. And one of the things that Ross said, and I will, is that he goes, the more that I research, the more that I think that consciousness is one of the keys with UFO sightings and contact. And I have said this over and over again. You can research this subject, nuts and bolts, metal, flying saucers, interdimensional. What you can go and do your thing. Look at the video. You can do all of that. Eventually, you are going to reach the conscious connection of UFOs. You're going to get there. You're going to land on it. Well, Jessie and her husband were talking about this in 1954. And I find that incredible.
It is. And this is something that was omitted from Gibson's book. Again, the intellectual who got really close with this family. He wrote the first book on the incident, but there was one thing he didn't put in there because he thought it wouldn't add credibility to the case. It wasn't mentioned until almost, I want to say, like almost a decade later. And that was right before Jessie had this sighting. She was reading George Adamski's Flying Saucers Have Landed book that was published just the year before in 1953. And it was a bestseller in the British occult circles. So I think Gibson didn't place that little detail in the book because it suggests that what after reading something, she was going to experience it in the outside world because of her imagination, not out of luck or coincidence or something else entirely. But it seems that this was a pretty important detail because Adamsky noted that back on November 20th, 1952, in the California desert, he encountered beings that looked very similar to Jessie's encounter. They were these Nordic type beings, very tall, blonde, beautiful. Adamsky had mentioned that these beings' hair was more beautiful than any woman's hair. That was also a direct quote from the book. And the only difference was that Adamsky had described this as Vesuvian contact, and that they had, instead of like a bright blonde that Jessie had mentioned, these were more of a sandy color, wavy type hair that glistened more beautifully than any woman's. And also, the suits on these beings that Adamsky saw were kind of a chocolatey brown one piece ski suit like uniform. Jessie, hers were the what beings that she saw were blue, but also skin tight ski like suits. Why do you think it would have been important to add that detail in the book, or is it irrelevant information in your opinion?
Well, everything is relevant. I don't, like to dismiss anything that a witness says or describes. I have always felt, and this includes my own sightings and experiences, I haven't had two identical UFO sightings. It hasn't happened. I haven't seen two things that were exactly the same. I've seen a lot of different things that I have to describe differently because they were different. So there's that part. And the other side of this, I really, and this comes from my own experience, Christina, because everything is so different. Why is it different? Well, just maybe different species are coming to Earth and checking things out once. Once. There's a trillion planets in our galaxy, just in the Milky Way. And there are trillions and trillions of galaxies in the universe, which means there are trillions to the trillionth power, right, of planets out there. You can't possibly have the time to go and explore every single one, but you're going to do as many as you can. That's what we are doing as Earthlings. We're looking at exoplanets and we're trying to discover as much as we can. So, advanced intelligent species that are out checking things out quite possibly come by here, give the planet a name, give the planet a number, they catalog it, they see where we are at, and they're off to checking out the next one. And so the next planet, of which they have a trillion to check out in the Milky Way. So what are we experiencing here? Right? One after another, different craft, different beings, different types. And I'm okay with that. To describe different uniform colors and different, well, uh, I think it's very simple. It's like Occam's razor. DNA is DNA. Chemistry is chemistry. So DNA is going to be the same or very similar throughout the universe, let alone just here in the Milky Way. Two arms, two legs, two eyes, two ears, some hair, a humanoid shape, upward walking. It's a pretty good design. And that's what DNA is going to give you. So why not have similar descriptions of ET? No matter where they are from the universe or our Milky Way. It just makes sense to me. So similar descriptions, craft in the sky, similar descriptions of ET, but that doesn't mean that it's one race of ET visiting here every single day. I don't think that is probably the case. That's my take, and that's why these descriptions from people are similar but different. And I'll leave this with you. I want your thoughts on this. Let's say, Christina, you have two different encounters with ET, stepping off a craft in your front yard, right? Do you think that they are going to be from the same planet? Right? Right?
I see
Right?
the
Just
logic. Okay.
yeah. Do you see what I'm saying?
I
That
do.
that that's right. And are you okay with that? Like multiple races, multiple star systems, multiple planets visiting us because we have a beautiful blue place and it's it's cool to check out.
Before we head out, I gotta end it with this, Jimmy. What are your thoughts on the Three Eye Atlas? Do you think it's a rock? Do you think it's a spacecraft? From the information that we have right now, because I know it's constantly changing.
Right,
What
right,
do you
right.
think?
Well, the latest press release today, right? That the exhaust, right, is metallic, right? The exhaust, nickel and iron. So now, you know what that says to me? And these comments are typically frozen, this and that, and they melt and they get so. That's not the case here. It looks like it's a metallic object. Avi Loeb said today, in his latest blog post, he said, "Hey, I think we really need to get ready and prepare ourselves for a black swan moment. This may be something sent here." Now that's crazy, and so we're gonna have the Mars Reconnaissance um, uh, point its cameras and its stuff towards it. It's nearing Mars now. It's going to get really close to us between now and Halloween, which I find totally crazy. Every telescope on this planet, every sensor, everything that we have in the sky orbiting this planet, everything is going to be pointed at Three Eye Atlas. If it turns out to be a metallic craft, a metallic object, that is going to change things. And we are right there. So what do you think? You know what I mean? If it's emitting nickel and iron as its exhaust, what is it made up of if that's what it's giving up? What do you think?
I'm just excited to see how the story is unfolding, how more people are doing their research on this, getting more information, and I really think Abby brings up a good point. If you believe it to be a rock or a spacecraft, putting that aside, it almost in some respects doesn't even matter. What matters is that we have to consider all the possibilities and make all of the protocols. That's why he wrote a white paper to the United Nations, because from his knowledge, the globe doesn't have an international protocol to deal with an interstellar object that might be alien. We've seen all the sci-fi movies. We know how it turns out for them. So if it's a rock, great. Whew, we're good. We're safe, nothing to worry about, and it was fun to speculate. But if it's not, and this object changes its course, people are going to
Which it
be
already
talking
has
in great
done.
detail, which it already
Yeah.
has done, but not
Yeah.
significantly enough for people to get worried. Like
Well,
your average person.
no, Christina, young one. This is where I'm going to jump in.
Where's the
This is
peckle?
where I'm going to jump in. This is Avi's point, which is my point. The universe is so big, you don't understand. Okay, you don't. You think you do. You do not. It is ginormous beyond comprehension. All right. So you step outside into the universe, head 1,000 light years away. You don't see planet Earth. You don't see our sun. You don't see any. All you see is the vastness of space. This object from interstellar space came to us on our elliptical plane. Out of every place that it can go in the universe, it chose us. Came in on our elliptic, came in and orbited our sun and is coming around the other side. Out of every place that it could do in the universe, it chose here. And if it's metallic and the odds of that happening, I think it pushes everything just into fantastical, extraordinary. So if it's metallic and it shows this, us, yeah, I think we need to step back and really check this out. I am not at all going to be surprised if it is artificial. I'm not. It is just too, the odds of all of this is crazy. You can't go play the lottery. Go play the lottery. You're going to win the lottery before this happens again.
Okay. Last question, because I mean, right now it's on everyone's mind. We should be getting some pictures October 3rd, tomorrow. This is when it's going to be closest to Mars, and hopefully the Mars, one of Mars's satellites is
The
going to,
orbiter, the
yeah,
reconnaissance.
the reconnaissance orbiter is going to take some pictures. Do you think, in your opinion, and I'm asking this to the chat as well in the audience, do you think we're going to get actual photos of this 3-eye atlas, doctored photos of some kind,
I
or are they
know,
going to
right?
say, "Oh no, actually we weren't able to get any pictures. Sorry about that, guys."
Right, right.
How do you think it's going to
No,
pan out tomorrow?
no. Everybody is taking pictures of this. Okay. We're not just going to have the Mars reconnaissance images. We're going to have probably a bunch of stuff from Hubble. I would love to get some stuff from the James Webb, but we have all of the other terrestrial ground observatories and telescopes looking. All of the amateur astronomers are going to be doing their best. They have fantastic telescopes in some backyards out there, and imaging upon imaging. And it's not only that, but it's all of the spectrometer stuff that is going to be pointed at it, all of the chemical makeups that are going to be pointed at it. Like I said, the latest press release today is that it's emitting nickel and iron out of the back of it, not CO2, right? Not steam, right? Not water, not hydrogen or helium or anything else that you can think of, some gaseous thing. It's nickel and iron, Christina, and I'm just fascinated with this. So yeah, we're gonna get images, we're gonna get video, we're gonna get all of that stuff for the next 3 weeks, and it's going to be incredible. But just like Oumuamua, what we're going to collect is all we are going to be able to collect. It's moving at 150,000 miles per hour. It's going to be gone. That's it. So we have this small window to collect all of this data. It's going to be 10, 11, 12, 13 days, like I just said. And after that, it's gone. It's gone. So we'll collect what we can. Now, what if it does turn? What if it increases speed like Oumuamua did? We still don't, and Oumuamua, we had 11 days. We had 11 days of data. It changed course and increased speed and split, right? It's gone. So we only have the data that we could collect at the time. And that also caught us by surprise. A 3-eye atlas appeared from behind Jupiter. We didn't see it, by the way, before then. It pops out behind Jupiter, but we've known about it now for a number of months.
Right,
We've
since
had a
July.
heads up. It's a little bit different than Oumuamua. Oumuamua caught us by surprise. We did what we could and collected data on it. But now, everything we got is pointed at 3-eye atlas. It's going to be great, man. All the way, right? Of all things, Halloween.
I know. How
What a
exciting.
gift. That's a bag full of candy. Christina, thank you so much. I'll just, before you ask, I'll let everybody know before I get out of here tonight on Fade to Black, Adam Apollo is back with us. He's going to have a lot to say about 3-eye atlas. He's a physicist. He's a very smart guy. So tonight, a full night of galactic conversation on Fade to Black. Christina, I won't be here next week. I got to go tape my TV show. I got to go tape Beyond Belief. So I'll see everybody the week after that. And when I get back with Christina, I'm going to be 1 year older.
Your birthday's coming up.
29 years old. Can you believe it? Yeah. I'll see everybody tonight on Fade to Black. And I'll be back here with Christina in 2 weeks. Thank you, Christina. See you, everyone.
Thank you. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button right down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you enjoy UFO news, updates, case studies, and interviews, then you will like this channel. So hit the notification bell so you do not miss any of the daily content I post right here. We covered a good amount of stuff here today. Not only did we cover the case of Jessie Roestenberg, but also the Three-Eye Atlas. It really is on everyone's mind. So I'm going to throw this to you one more time. Do you think it's just a rock or a spacecraft? That is it for today. I will see you all again tomorrow. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. If you enjoyed today's show, hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit the notification bell as I do daily UFO news and updates. Fresh UAP stories, government disclosures, and breaking developments land here every single day.